Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Welcome back to SNH. By the way, next week I won't be here, so you'll have a break. So no halaqah. Just go chill, do something else. Something wise. So tonight I wanted to talk about, a few things, but I'll tie them inshallah together. I want to talk about the importance of helping other people, and also how that could become an objective in life, and it kind of ties into the meaning of life, because a lot of people struggle with that. Like, why am I on earth? What's the reason of it all? Is there any good reason for being here and for living and all of that? But I want to start with a few injunctions from the Prophet ﷺ, where he basically over and over again told us to help other people and to be in the help. So he said, for example, وَاللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be helping you as long as you are helping other people, as long as you're helping your brother in need. So you have to make this tie between you helping others and Allah Himself helping you. And this help could be very simple sometimes. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be, maybe giving someone a gum if they need something like that. So even something very, very small, very, very minute is great in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should not underestimate any good, anything we do to other people. You may think it's little, you may think it's not significant, but it could be very significant to someone else who's in need. We also have to remember that, and this is something I observe among some Muslims, not everybody, but some Muslims. Some Muslims approach Islam as different compartments. So they'll say, I believe in Islamic theology. It's like a dogma. So I have to believe in 1, 2, 3, 4. And that makes me a good Muslim as far as my belief, my creed. And then when it comes to worship, I believe I have to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 for my prayer to be good, to be correct. And on and on and on. So everything is compartmentalized, as we say. Everything is a different compartment. And they become like a robot executing some commands. In fact, you even notice some people, even the way they move, it's like they are bound to a certain mold, to a certain structure. And this is not what Islam asks us to do. Islam is very natural. You have to be natural. The companions of the Prophet, in fact, Ibn Mas'ud described the companions and he said they were أَقَلُّ تَكَلُّفًا. They were the most natural people, not mechanistic, because takalluf is when you are artificial, you're superficial, trying to pretend something you're not. So it's really important for a Muslim to be natural, the way Allah created you. In fact, something also I have to mention, you have to be a human before you are a Muslim. And some people might say, this is not Islamic. It sounds foreign to me. This is not what I was taught. The Prophet ﷺ said it. He told us, for example, in one hadith, خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ. The best amongst you as a Muslim were the best before Islam. Because the companions converted to Islam. So he said the people who were best in the times of Jahiliyyah, pre-Islamic times, are going to be the best people in Islam. And, several hadith like that. For example, he said in one hadith that إِنَّ الْأَمَانَةَ نَزَلَتْ فِي جَذْرِ قُلُوبِ الرِّجَالِ. He said that the trust was given and was inserted in the hearts of men. And then he said, and then they learned Islam, and then they learned the Quran. So something there first, some foundation. Before learning Quran and learning Islam and becoming a Muslim scholar, he said there was some foundation, there was some trust. How many people we meet today? How many Muslims who we cannot trust? So he said there has to be some foundation, some infrastructure to build upon. You have to be a human. So do not forget your humanity, and do not let yourself, or do not fool yourself by saying, well, I am a Muslim because I'm doing certain rituals, or I'm following a certain protocol, and that makes me a good Muslim. We should not forget our humanity. We should not forget the fact that we are humans, and we have a natural disposition, a natural inclination, fitrah, an instinct, an innate nature. So in order to illustrate that, today I chose for you a story, another story. And this story again is actually narrated by, or written by, the famous Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author. And I think if you remember a few Saturdays ago, we did one of his stories. You remember the story? Very good. How much land does a man need? So the story of tonight is, I think it says, what men live by. What men live by. Meaning what people live for. What kind of objective you have in life. What kind of goal you have in life. What are worthy goals and what are not worthy goals. By the way, this author, Tolstoy, some people say he became a Muslim at the end of his life. I'm not quite sure if it is true. You can research it if you like. But also if you Google his name, if you put his name and then Muhammad or Quran, you're going to find some really interesting statements by him. So those are authentic statements by Tolstoy, saying some very good things about Islam. So apparently he was very impressed with Islam. Whether he actually converted is to be verified. So okay. Also what I'm going to do, inshallah, in the story, you might find that certain things, not minor things that could be un-Islamic or may not agree with Islamic theology. So I'm going to point these out, or maybe have you assist me to point these out, because inshallah I think you'll be able to find them. And this is also to teach us to be critical when we read something. I mean, you should not be like a sponge. Anything you read, anything you see, you hear, you just absorb like a sponge. You should have a critical mind. So anytime you hear something, you should be ready to critique it. Not necessarily criticize it, but critique it. There's a difference between critique and criticism. So inshallah, I want your radar, your Muslim radar, to be awake. We have a huge cluster of people there. Can we please spread out a little bit? We have some gaps still, maybe over here, a little bit of gaps. I need some of you, those hiding and those giggling and talking, and especially you, Bara, with all the stuff you have, the phone. Can you please move here a little bit? Some of you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Where was I? We haven't started, but we're going to start the story. Okay. So this is a story of a shoemaker. Shoemaker, someone who makes shoes and fixes shoes as well. So this shoemaker was not very rich. He was actually poor, and he lived in a small house. And him and his wife, and this is kind of Russia, right? So it's kind of cold usually. So this is the middle of the winter. And they only had one coat, so not enough even to wear and be warm in the winter. So the wife was always scolding him, "You should go and find us another coat because we cannot share the same coat. And some people owe you money. You should go and ask for that money so we can afford to buy a coat." So yes, but the man was kind of a bit, not weak, but a bit shy. So he was very nice. So even when he asked for the money, he's not very, he was not very strong or not very pressing in his ask, right? Some people are mild. They ask once, they're told no, and they just go. They don't ask again. So he was that kind of man. But, the wife was, begging him, like, you have to go and find us another coat, go find these nice, sheep furs and stuff like that. So the man left. And he went to the people that owed him money, and from one to another, no one was willing to give him money. He had, a few little, change in his pocket, but that was not enough to buy a coat. So the man was not feeling well, he was a bit depressed. How is he going to face his wife again with no coat? On his way back, he was passing by a shrine. And as he was passing by, he saw a man on the ground, not moving. He was a young man, and he was shivering from cold. He didn't have enough to wear. So the man thought to himself, well, I have a coat, I'm wearing a coat, maybe I can help him. And then he remembered his wife and said, if I give him my coat, I'm done. She's not going to let me in even. So he had this, conflict in his mind. What do I do? And as he was leaving, he said to himself, what am I doing? Have I forgotten about God, or have I forgotten about my morality? How can I leave a man laying here, in the cold, dying? I cannot live with myself if I let this happen. So he turned back and he took off his coat and he covered the man. He turned him around. He was actually a young man, maybe like some of you guys. So the man, started to, become conscious and with the warmth, and then the shoemaker thought to himself, well, maybe I should take this man to the house. Maybe he's hungry, so maybe I can offer him some food. Great. So, he picked him up and then he took him with him. He helped him, to walk, and he walked all the way with him to the house. Now the wife was waiting and she was eager, right? She was waiting to see what happened and where the coat is, and she had a lot of expectations. But when she saw her husband coming back empty-handed, she became irritated. And before they could even get in the house, she said, like, what are you doing? Where is the coat? And who did you bring? Is this one of your loser friends? What were you guys doing? Hanging around and maybe, playing cards or something like that. You forgot about the coat. And the shoemaker kept trying to calm her down and say, like, I need to tell you what happened. And she wouldn't listen. And then the young man was sat on the table. And he was not talking a single word. In fact, he was staring down and he was kind of frowning. It's as if he had a lot of things on his mind. So the shoemaker was curious. He asked, like, who are you? Where do you come from? We know nothing about you. You're not from the village, obviously. So where do you come from? And finally, the young man spoke and he said, I cannot tell you where I came from. I can tell you that I was punished. I was punished by God. And this is why I'm suffering. The way you see me, like my where you see me in is actually a punishment from God. That's why I was on the floor, unconscious, and all of that. Now the wife was listening, and bit by bit she was becoming, sympathetic with the plight of the young man. And she thought to herself, again, just like her husband, what am I doing? Why am I so selfish? Look, he's a young man, and he doesn't have a house. At least we have a house. We have, a small little house. We have some clothes on, and this man barely had anything, and he was cold. So let me make dinner. Because initially she didn't want to make anything. Like, she was so upset, she didn't want to make any dinner. So she started making dinner. Didn't have a lot of food, maybe some bread and maybe a little bit of soup, but that's it. Now, when the young man saw the food, he smiled for the first time. Up till this moment, he never smiled at all. So they look at him and they weren't sure what's happening. Like, why is he smiling all of a sudden? And then he ate, and that was it. So the next morning, the shoemaker offered the young man a job. He said, might as well, since he's here and he's kind of a burden on us now. We're supporting him, we're feeding him. Maybe we can have him help us. So the young man said, of course, yeah, I will help. And he turned out to be a very good shoemaker. So he was helping the shoemaker, and he was actually creating business for him because he was doing a very good job. And a lot of people actually started coming to the house of the shoemaker. And like I said, the business flourished. Yeah, we have space here if you like. Yeah, go. Okay, you came from the middle of the story, so I hope you understand it. We can recap later, maybe. So the man was happy. The shoemaker was happy with the help that he was getting now from the young man, and he thought to himself, well, I'm grateful. This turned out to be a good thing. One day, they heard some commotion outside, and then somebody came. It seems like one of the noble people, rich people. He's a rich man, bulky, and of course, along with that comes, pride, arrogance. He was obnoxious. He knocked on the door. He came in. He barged in, and he had a little servant with him. And he said, "Oh, we heard about you and how good you are. You're a good shoemaker, and I want you to make me the best shoe ever made." And he brought a really nice piece of leather, like the fanciest type of leather you can imagine. And he put it in front of him, and he said, "I want you to make me these boots, and they have to be a really good quality. They have to be good for a year. And if they go bad within a year, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in jail. So it's an offer. Either take it or leave it. Either you take it, and you promise me a nice pair of boots, and they have to be good, and they have to hold together for a whole year, or you're going to be in trouble." So the shoemaker looked around, looked at the young man, and he said, "What do you think?" He said, No, we can do it. Let's do it. Right? So he said, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. We'll take the risk. Now, as this happened, the shoemaker noticed that the young man was looking toward that noble person. But he was not looking at him. He was looking kind of toward him, or even beyond him. And he was smiling. That was the second time he smiled. Now remember, between the two incidents, like between the first time they brought him in, and now it must have been, I don't know, maybe a few years even. So it was a long time. That was the second time he smiled in all this period of time. So, the shoemaker was kind of, taken by that. Like, why all of a sudden? Why the smile all of a sudden? What happened? And this nobleman got upset, like, what are you smiling? Are you an idiot? What made you smile? What made you laugh? Anyway, the shoemaker said, I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about anything. We'll notify you when the boots are ready. And this man left. Now, that night, the young man was very, very energetic and very, very good at his job. He started working on these pair of boots. Now, the wife was watching from a distance, and she noticed that he was cutting the leather in a weird way. He was cutting it in round shapes. And that's not how you make boots. This is not how you make boots. So initially she thought he was making a mistake. But then she said to herself, what do I know? These are the experts. Like my husband and this young man, these are the people who make the shoes all the time, so he must know what he's doing. So I should not intervene. And she kept watching, but sure enough, after a while, she noticed he was making leather socks, not leather shoes or not leather boots. And she became a bit concerned. But again, she said to herself, maybe this is, one step toward making the actual boots. So maybe there's something to it and I don't understand it. A few days later came somebody, a servant sent from the side of this nobleman. And he was running and, breathing heavily, knocking on the door, pounding on the door, opened the door, and he said, "Please stop everything. Do not make the boots anymore." What happened? "Please do not make the boots. This nobleman died. What we need now is leather socks. And this is the demand of his wife. Now we need to, put him in the coffin and prepare him. And what we need to do, because he's rich, we're going to have to instead use these leather socks to bury him with those socks." And now the shoemaker said, this is not, this is something beyond me here. What's happening? I mean, how did this young man know about all this, right? Instead of making the boots, now he made the socks, and this is exactly what was needed. But again, that person was not speaking much. So he didn't say much. He didn't say why he changed his mind and he made the leather socks instead of making the leather boots. Anyway, a few more years passed by. And they were having customers. People were coming and ordering all kinds of shoes and everything. Until came this woman. So this woman came, and she had two daughters with her. They were young daughters, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And they loved her so much. You can see them clinging to the mother's legs as she was walking. Now remember, this young man would never look anyone in the eyes, except this time. He was looking from the window as the woman was approaching the house, even before she would get in the house. He was looking from the distance, and he saw her with the 2 daughters, and he was staring at them as if he knew them. And he kept staring and staring until they all came in the house. And as soon as they came into the house, the young man was staring at the 2 girls and wondering, everybody was wondering, why was this happening? Now, the woman was very normal. She wanted to order shoes for her daughters. And she, just wanted to have something nice for them. But they could not help but notice how warm she was toward them, how she took care of them, how she was compassionate with them. And she made the order, and then as she was sitting for the 3rd time, they noticed that the young man was smiling. So again, a 3rd smile. So you can count his smiles, literally. So they noticed he was smiling, and again, this is one of these times, right? And they could not, for the life of them, understand why. Why was he smiling all of a sudden? This guy never smiles at anything. Anyway, when they departed, they asked him, they could not be patient anymore. They said, "You have to tell us now, what's happening? Who are you? You've been with us for years. You don't say a word. We're happy with you. You do a great job, but you never smile except those 3 times. Can you tell us why?" He said, "Well, now I can." And he sat down and started telling them. He said, "Well," and again, like I said, this is not a real story. And we'll explain, if there anything that may not be coherent with our belief, but let me tell you the story and the moral behind the story. So he said, "Actually, I was an angel, and I disobeyed God, so I was punished." So we know in Islam, angels do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one critique of the story. But again, like I said, this is not a true story. So he said, I was an angel and I disobeyed God, and he punished me. And he punished me by sending me to earth and having me act like a human being, to see what the humans go through. So this is why I was cold, and I was in the open, I was hungry, this is when you came and saved me. And he said, when God sent me on earth, of course the other problem here is that we don't speak on behalf of God without knowledge. So this is also, we have to take that into consideration. Again, because you're going to read a lot of stories in life. You're going to read a lot of stories, you're going to hear a lot of stories, and you should have these critical eyes, critical ears when you read something. Okay, so he said, when he sent me, he said, I want you to answer three questions for me. I want you to learn 3 lessons. As you interact with humans, I want you to learn 3 lessons. The first lesson I want you to learn is, what dwells in humans? Again, what is it? What is the question? What dwells in humans? And number 2, the second lesson or second question, what do they not have? What does humans or people do not have? Something that no one has. No one was given that thing. So I want you to find something that no person was given. And the third lesson or the third question is, what men live for? Why do they live? What kind of ambition they have in life? What kind of goal they have in life? So once you learn those 3 lessons, then your punishment is over and you can come back. So the young man said, well, the first time I smiled is because I learned the first lesson. And this is when I was in such a need. And I found you, and I found your wife. And you guys were so good to me. And I found that what dwells in human beings was this nice character of compassion and mercy. Like, you can be rude, you could be upset, but there's something inside of you, and that something will turn on at one point. And you kind of turn around and do something good for someone. He said, this is what dwells in human beings. I know a lot of times we have a very negative opinion of other people and how they act, but you also notice a lot of times, once you get to know them a little better, or something happens, something sparks within them, and they turn to be nice. Sometimes maybe it's a misunderstanding, maybe they had a bad day, maybe something going on in their lives. But at one point you see that they turn around and they become so nice. So what dwells in people's hearts is love and compassion. And then he said, well, the second lesson is when this rude man came. He thought he was noble, he thought he was rich, and he came. And right behind him, I saw my friend, the angel of death. So it turned out this angel was not any angel, he was an assistant to the angel of death. He said, I saw my friend right behind him. And I was thinking to myself, this man was so excited about ordering his new pair of shoes, not realizing that he's going to die in a few hours. And I thought to myself, what kind of goal some people have in life? Like, all they're striving to have, all they're striving to do in this life is to acquire something very insignificant, very materialistic, like a pair of shoes, and they obsess about it, and they want to have the best kind, the best leather. It has to be fancy, and it cannot have any flaws. And I smiled and said, this is the thing that no one is given. No one of us is given like an exact direction of what to do with your life. We all have, mashallah, a lot of potential. We have lots of talents, but a lot of us are clueless what to do with these talents. This is why many people waste their lives. They waste their talents. They're given everything and they waste it. And they go waste and ruin their lives. They might go into drugs, into alcohol, all kinds of things. And they never understand why they're here on earth. So he said, this is the second lesson. This is the one thing that no one is given. You have to find out. You have to find out your potential. your ambition, your objective in life, your mission in life, it's up to you. You're the one who's going to discover that. This is not given to anyone, he said. So I smiled. I learned the second lesson. And then came the third lesson a few years later. When I saw these two girls, he said, I recognized those girls. In fact, this is the reason I was punished. Because I was sent to take the soul of their mothers, their mother. And when I came to their house, their mother was sick. And I noticed they were orphans. Their father was already dead. And I thought to myself, now I'm going to have to take the soul of their mother. And they're going to be with no one. They're going to be left alone. They don't have a father, and now they're going to lose their mother. What kind of angel am I? So he couldn't do it. Although, again, this is not a real story, another warning. But again, let's get to the morality of the story. So he said, I could not do it. I could not make myself do it. So I went back to God and said, I could not do it. And, then this is why I was punished. Not realizing the mercy of God. Because what happened, this mother died. Right? The angel of death came and took her soul. And yes, these girls were left without a mother, but there was a neighbor. And this woman was very compassionate. And she was not sick, she was healthy. And she had a son who died. So now she had extreme emotions and love toward young people, like young kids. So she took those two girls and she took care of them like nothing else. She loved them even more than her own son. And she you could see even when she was walking to your house, you could see how they loved her back. They were clinging to her legs and they would not let go. This is how much they loved her back. And when I saw them sitting next to the mother, well, the mother who adopted them, because she was not the real mother, I thought to myself, well, this is the last lesson here. This is the third lesson. This is why people live. This is what they live for. One of the meanings in life is to do good to others. This is what brings meaning to my life, is when I help someone else. What brings meaning to someone else's life is when they think beyond themselves. I mean, a lot of people are so selfish. They live all their lives and all they can care about, all they can think about is me, me, me. Like, what can I do to improve my life? What can I do to have a better house, a better car, a better job, a better bank account? But they never think beyond themselves. They never think about other people. They never help other people. And those people don't have a lot of meaning in life. Their life is empty. And they're going to die alone. So I discovered that what people should live for, what they should strive for, is to have a cause, to help someone else, whoever it is, to help someone else, some other human being. And this is when I smiled the third time. And I was happy that I passed the test. So I'm now ready to go, and he left. This is the end of the story, and like I said, I thought it was a very interesting story. You're welcome to go and read it on your own. Obviously, I summarized it for you. It's a little longer than that. I had to omit some details, but I hope I gave justice to the story. And like I said, don't focus too much on the theological aspect, because as I said and as I pointed out, there are few mistakes in the story from a theological perspective, the way we believe in things, what we believe. We believe the angels cannot commit sins, and there's also some amount of divine knowledge that we would not have on our own. So unless we have it from revelation, we do not make any claims about God, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what kind of conversation he had with angels, because this is a matter of the unseen. However, if you strip that away and look at the rest of the story, it's a beautiful story. And again, the stories, a lot of them are there to illustrate a point, to drive a point home, because people like stories, and a lot of concepts are hard to understand if we did not have stories to illustrate those points. But as I said earlier in the beginning, this is well illustrated in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the fact that part of our piety is built upon and is contingent upon helping others. And I'll inshallah end with this. A lot of people today, they do not link words with actions. So they think I can be a good Muslim if I have a good belief, like I believe in all the 6 foundations of Iman, and I pray on time, and that's it. And this, I want to say, is not the most or the best understanding of Islam. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith, the best of you, the best people who, the people who have the best Iman are the people who have the best morals. And I always wondered, why did the Prophet ﷺ link Iman, which is something like, intellectual or you could say spiritual, with morality and having good morals and good behavior? I mean, it takes a while, it takes a bit to kind of understand that. Like, yeah, we know the Prophet wanted to link the two because you do not want to have like this dual personality. On one hand you're good, on the other hand you're evil, right? So you need to have a coherent personality. And psychologists talk about this all the time, that you need to have a coherent being. This is why lying is so detrimental to your personality, because it's going to cause discrepancies in your being. But why did the Prophet ﷺ make that link between belief and good morals? And I think one of the real good reasons is because whenever we act, your action actually is giving away your belief. So belief is not what you profess. Belief is what you act out. Because anytime you make a decision, you say, I'm going to do something, that is based on your belief. Don't tell me otherwise. Whatever you do in life, like every day you wake up and you decide you want to do those things, and you decide you're not going to do those things. You discriminate. You say, I'm not going to do these things, and I'm going to do those things. This is exactly what you believe in. This is giving away what you believe in. So whatever you say doesn't matter. What you do. And again, this is actually now professed by psychologists, that what you do is actually a reflection of what you believe in. What you truly and deeply believe in is going to translate into actions, even without you noticing, even without you thinking about it. It's almost subconscious. What you do is a reflection of your belief. And this is exactly what the Prophet said, ﷺ. He said, you cannot separate between belief and action. And if you're good in one, you're going to be good in the other. And the best in belief is going to be the best in action. So don't say that my belief is true and correct and according to the right methodology, but your actions suck. Your actions are evil. This dichotomy does not exist. In Islam, it does not exist in human behavior even. You're lying to yourself when you say, I am on the correct belief, but your actions are improper. Your actions are a problem. They're nasty. They're inappropriate. This is not even possible. So I wanted to end on that note, inshallah, and we can conclude the segment and go to the Q&A if you have any questions. I think we can close.